Hey, I'm Dave. Welcome back to TRP Tech Talk. On this edition, we'll be performing a full bleed on our mountain bike brake system. I've got the G-Spec DHR, however the bleed procedure remains the same across our entire mountain line. The tools required for this are a 3 and 4 millimeter Allen wrench, T15 Torx wrench, 4-piston bleed block, TRP bleed cup, TRP branded mineral oil, a syringe filled halfway full of mineral oil, isopropyl alcohol, nitrile gloves, and a clean rag or paper towel. So the first thing you're going to need to do is remove the wheel to avoid any contamination on the rotor. Do this via the manufacturer's recommendations. With the wheel removed, next step is to remove your brake pads. First, remove your brake pad retaining pin clip. This can easily be done by hand. The next, using your 3 millimeter Allen wrench, carefully remove the brake pad retaining pin and set aside for later. Then we can remove the pads. The DHR's pads can come out from the top, where the Quadium's pads come out from the bottom. Set these aside in a safe place so they don't get contaminated. Now we can install our bleed block. The bleed block is going to be used to prevent the pistons from moving as we push fluid through the system. The 3 millimeter Allen and pad retaining pin can be used to secure that brake block to ensure that it doesn't fall out. Once that's in place, we can go ahead using our T15 Torx. We can remove the plug, the bleed plug, from the brake caliper itself. Once again, set this aside because we're going to need it after the bleed. Now I've got my syringe here already filled. We can go ahead and thread the syringe into the caliper. And then we'll move up to the lever. Now the first step for the lever is to angle it so that the bleed port is at the highest point. Now we found at about a 25-degree angle works best for this. Then using our T15 Torx again, we can remove the bleed port plug. Set that aside, and we're going to go ahead and install our TRP bleed cup with the plug installed. And once that's secure, we can remove the plunger and set that aside as well. Now we can start to perform our bleed. So slowly pushing fluid, keeping our syringe in a vertical position, we can start to fill up the bleed cup and push fluid from the bottom through the system all the way out through the lever reservoir. You should start seeing the cup fill up with fluid now. And we want to keep that fluid for a little bit of a later use. So with that cup about halfway full, we can actually start to do a reverse bleed, and slowly squeezing the lever, we can get some of that fluid from the bleed cup to push its way back down the system, and if there's any bubbles trapped in the caliper, they will then go back into the syringe. So now that I've successfully got most of the bubbles out of the caliper and I've got them out of the lever as well, I'm going to go ahead and finish it off with a little bit more fluid at the caliper side, making sure not to push any air in. Once that's set, we can go back and put our plunger back in our bleed cup, creating a seal to allow me to remove the syringe without excess fluid flowing through the system. Once the syringe is removed, replace the caliper bleed plug. Secure that in place. Now, I can go ahead and remove the plunger from the bleed cup once again, giving us a small reservoir to allow us to do the lever purge. At this stage, if your lever still feels a little bit soft and you think there's still air in the system, I've got a little trick to show you. Using some sort of compression strap, like a tow strap, zip tie, or rubber band, put that around the handlebar and lever. Then slowly squeeze the brake lever to ensure you're building up an initial pressure. Once you feel enough pressure, strap the lever down nice and snug, not too tight. And what that's going to do is put the entire system under compression. If there are any bubbles left, they're going to get smaller. That means they're going to move through the nooks and crannies of the lever, hose, and caliper much easier. You can even take the handle of a screwdriver and encourage those bubbles to free up by tapping on the hose, lever, and caliper. Now this can be set for 1 hour, 2 hours, or even overnight if you have the time. But once you're done, undo the compression strap and slowly release the lever. And what that's going to do is suck the fluid that's in this cup down into the reservoir. And at this stage, you can continue doing the lever purge by flicking and pulling on the brake lever to try to get those bubbles in that reservoir to come out of this cup and the fluid in the cup to flow down. And from here, you can continue your lever purge. You should start to feel the system become much firmer than it was if you had any air in the system. And when you start to feel that it is adequately firm, you know that you've performed a full bleed. Now in order to get this cup off, we're going to go back and put the plunger back into the cup. And we can go ahead and remove the cup. Now this cup does have fluid in it, so I'm going to set it in the mineral oil container so that we don't spill it. And we can go ahead and take our T15 Torx and replace our lever bleed port plug. Now using a clean rag and some isopropyl alcohol, we can clean up the lever from any residual fluid that might be there. And we can also clean up the caliper to make sure we avoid contamination once again. Now once you've removed all the contaminants or any oil from the caliper, you can do the reverse process of replacing our brake pads by removing the 3mm Allen pad retaining pin. And we can remove our bleed block as well. I'd like to get in there and clean inside of the caliper before I put the brake pads in, just to ensure I don't get any oil on them. And carefully, without touching the surfaces of the brake pads, insert them back into the caliper. And once again, the pad retaining pin comes in handy. We can go ahead and secure our brake pads in place. And don't forget the pad retaining pin clip. All right, so now we've performed a full bleed on this DHR system. You can go ahead and put the wheel back in per the manufacturer's recommendations, and you are ready to ride. Thanks for watching. I hope this video was helpful. For any questions, feel free to contact us at info@trpcycling.com. And for more content like this, please visit our website.
I do the